Hey swingers, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Speed Racer the video game.
With Tire Swing Gaming. I'm Logan. I am
Here,
sitting on the left again, as I generally do in this Tire Swing. And over there is Seth. And before we get into our topic, I just wanted to point out, I forgot to point out, again, this is another redubbing a year afterwards. I forgot to point out to the swingers, this is post us moving to the new Tire Swing. We've been to the new Tire Swing for like 6 fucking months now.
I know, it's wild.
So, like, yeah.
We're independent white women.
Who don't need no man.
Anyway, swingers.
Oh wait, no, that's strong independent black women. Shit.
We're
We
not
do
that.
need no man swingers.
But we are not strong independent black women.
So yeah, that's my point. We do need no man. But Seth has a topic he wants to talk about
Yes,
for this
so
episode.
swingers, for years now at work we've had 2 ducks come through work. And
How do you know they're the same two ducks?
because they're the same colors, and I'm just
Wow.
I am making assumptions, but they always hang around the same part of the property.
Wow.
They always hang around the pool. Well, I finally found the duck's nest.
Oh boy, swingers. This sounds a little hate crime me if you ask me.
Hang on, it's right outside the bathroom, which is super sus because like we go through there all the fucking time. But I decided.
Oh! So now you're feeling threatened by these ducks that are encroaching on your living spaces. That's what's going on.
No.
Swingers,
I am
if you hear
befriending-
about a duck getting firebombed in the coming weeks, well, we all know what happened.
Swingers, I am befriending the ducks. I have even named them.
You're imposing your white male names upon these ducks. They already had their own names, slaver.
I am giving them an Americanized name.
Wow. That's cultural denial. That's Americanization's not okay. That's super nationalistic stuff.
Yes, it's problematic. Anyway, stop projecting real world problems into my ducks.
Go duck yourself.
Anyway, I named what I assume is the mother
Wow.
Pop-Tart.
Did you just assume gender?
Shut the fuck up. And the other one I named Warhead because I was like, okay.
So you assume gender and then just assign an effeminate name to the female one
Pop-Tart's
and
not an effeminate name.
masculine name, a traditionally masculine name to the one you assume is a male.
You're such
Jeez.
a jackass.
You're just mad I'm making good points.
I named the one Warhead because I was thinking of the candy Warheads because his head is green. You want to ask Matt about this? I was actually going to name them...
I don't want to ask Matt about this. He names his animals dumb shit, like not Marowak.
I originally named it Sour Patch.
That's less masculine than Warhead.
Well, I don't really think of Sour Patch Kids as, green. I think of them as red, yellow, and blue.
Are there green ones?
I don't know. I know there are green Warheads, though.
I do like me some Sour Patch Kids, though. I also like Warheads.
And then I decided...
I was also thinking of the weapon Warhead when Seth first brought it up.
At first, I thought there were only 2 eggs in this nest, so I went to Eden. I'm like, all right, I need to come up with names for these eggs. And Eden just, blurted out immediately, Egbert. Like, okay, we'll workshop that one.
Yep. We'll put that one right here, right on the refrigerator, so everyone can see it.
And then this morning, I came up with Pop-Tart's kid, Pop Tropica.
Raindrops, Pop Trop.
And now I'm going to try and come up with a third name for the third duckling, assuming they all hatch and live.
You could name it The Ugly. So it's The Ugly Duckling.
Or I could name him Courtney.
That's ghetto. That was a
very racist video.
I want to say the guys who did it were not white, though, so that makes it less bad.
Does it? Still problematic.
Yes, it is problematic when people of a race perpetuate harmful stereotypes. It's more problematic when people of the other race assign and force those stereotypes onto them instead, though.
Sean.
So that's still salty about Sean eating a fucking taco cake for Cinco de Mayo on May 2nd.
In a completely white office with no Mexican descendants present.
3 days before Cinco de Mayo, I feel like a bunch of fucking idiots.
Like, I was like, Sean, that's low-key a little racist. And he's like, what? I'm like, and then he proceeded to try and defend his position. I'm like, this is not the situation where you defend yourself, all right?
Here's the thing. Sean claims he can admit when he's wrong, except when he's talking to me.
Or me, apparently.
He cannot admit when he's wrong. He knows in the back of his mind he's wrong, and he's not a racist person, but he didn't want to admit that his company was tone deaf, and he decided to pick a fight that he should have known better than to have.
Like, I think he should have figured it out when I told him he was using conservative talking points.
No, that was a bad move on your point. That just puts him in a defensive position. He's no longer willing to listen to your side whatsoever. Seth, when people in arguments, often when presented with certain types of evidence, go into fight or flight mode, and like literal fight or flight, and yeah, you can't reason with someone once they've hit that point. And telling the person you're arguing with that they are agreeing with the people that they don't like, not necessarily. You gotta word it right for that to be an effective technique. And I don't think you did.
Nobody told me this until today.
I kind of hinted at you yesterday that it was a bad idea, but I also didn't put in much effort to get you to not do it either. But you probably should. It's one of those things where you don't really think about in the moment, even though you know you should just stop and think, but you just don't feel like it, because fuck that guy, they're being a wiener, they deserve it.
Like, I wouldn't even be upset if he just was like, oh shit, really?
Yeah, like, here's the thing. So, it's definitely cultural appropriation. Sean should have been able to admit that. He knows to admit that. If he wants to argue about it, it should be what he should have been arguing about was whether that specific piece of cultural appropriation was a problem, or if cultural appropriation in general is a problem. Because here's the thing, swingers: you play a video game and you're playing Bravely Default 2, right? And there is a Scotsman. That's arguably cultural appropriation, not inherently bad, right? Like you play. Give me a video game.
Mario?
Give me a different one.
Horizon
Zero Dawn, right? Or fucking Assassin's Creed 3, where you play as a Native American. It's arguably cultural appropriation, right? Is it wrong in that situation? Probably not, because you're doing it because you respect the culture, right? Like, and if you do it right and you make clear indications of respect towards the culture, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a way to get more representation out there, right? Because that's the thing. There is a very hazy line between cultural appropriation, at least in certain forms of media, and representation, right? Because like Miley Cyrus twerking is obviously not representation in media. It is just plain cultural appropriation. Is it bad? Are all those white boys I see walking around cornrows with dreadlocks, is that inherently bad? No, it does not look good on white boys. Don't get me wrong, it looks fucking atrocious. But is it inherently immoral of them to do that? No, because like if it's a hairstyle, right? Like it's probably not a big deal. And like you can make the argument, you know, say you're a white boy from inner city Milwaukee. I assume Milwaukee has an inner city. All big cities have inner cities, right? That's where minorities tend to live, right? So you grew up with minority cultures, right? Is it cultural appropriation for you to, you know, act, talk, dress?
Like the people you hung out with.
Yeah, the people you grew up with? No. Like, that's just plain no.
Because you were a part of that culture.
But is it cultural appropriation for fucking rich boy who went to Yale to walk around with dreads?
Yes.
Yeah, and he looks like a fucking tool for it. So, like, the my point here is, and this is why I was saying this earlier today or yesterday's, not only is cultural appropriation, it's not black and white, it is a
spectrum.
It's a spectrum, it's not binary. The morality involved with it is also going to not be a binary, it's going to be a spectrum as well. And I think most people are at least partially aware of that. It's just not something that people tend to really put too much thought into it. Which I understand. It becomes a much more difficult topic to talk about when you frame it like that. But the hard conversations are the most important ones to have.
Yeah. Like, oh shit, I used to be racist. I really need to do something about this.
Yeah, literally all Sean had to say was, oh, you know what? It didn't even occur to me that this wasn't what my work is doing, that I didn't choose to have them do. Didn't even occur to me that probably isn't okay. But what's done is done, and you know, if I find out about it again in the future, maybe I'll try and say not to do it, but beyond that, like, is not a big enough deal for me to worry about. Also, that's all he had to say, and like, that would have been fine, at least in my book, but you know, I'm not Mexican, I can't speak, you know, 100% on whether it's really an issue or not, because for all my talking I just did in the last 5 minutes, I am a cisgender straight white male. I don't get to make the decisions of where it is and isn't cultural appropriation and whether or not it's moral. That is not up to me.
We literally come from a place of privilege in this regard.
Yes.
And recognizing that is one of the most important things we can do.
I'm not privileged, I'm boring. That's gonna be like, you're a big boy engineer at a big boy company, though you're privileged, and I'm gonna say, but where did I come from before that? And you're gonna say, yes, but you still had advantages that other groups didn't have, and I'm gonna say, well, yeah, but shut up.
No, what I'm actually going to say is Sean told me that if it weren't for cultural appropriation, America wouldn't have culture.
Not really how that works.
It's really not how that works. Because we would have had Western European culture no matter what.
Yeah, like culture melding is just, it does happen over time, and that's fine. Like, rap music became big. Like, that was 100% cultural appropriation. But same with rock music. Rock music was cultural appropriation. It used to be black music until Elvis came in. Jazz, we appropriated it and then we did nothing with it. Like, let's be real here. Only hipsters listen to jazz.
Like, I think the only genre of music that white people in America made worth talking about is country, and it fucking sucks.
I was gonna say, it's worth talking about in the
sense that it's popular.
Yes, in the loosest sense of the word. But I know.
Is a trash can
we came up with dubstep too, and techno.
I'm pretty sure that
actually I wouldn't be surprised if techno came from Japan and then it eventually got adapted to dubstep. Because the only difference between dubstep and techno, as far as I'm aware, I'm not a big techno or dubstep head, so don't flame me in the comments, or do. I don't really care. As far as I'm aware, the main difference is BPM.
I think techno was a logical evolution from video games, and most video games in the 80s came from Japan.
I wouldn't be surprised if techno was a thing prior to video games, or was going to become a thing anyways. Because as if you just stop and think about it, like, early video games had even more simplistic music than, like, you would imagine techno ever had.
Because they couldn't.
Yeah, that's my point. Like, once you got to the mid 80s, you could have some more advanced music that you could claim inspired techno. But I don't know when techno came out, so it might have come out before, the video game music that would have inspired it came out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And, like, you can think about techno as, like, 70s, 80s, 90s, there was a lot of, like, space age interest type shit. And techno does come across as, like, the space age music. So I can see that as having been a lot of what inspired it. Now, again, I'm not a techno or dubstep head. I'm literally talking out of my ass and making assumptions. I like to think they're really good assumptions, though.
You would, wouldn't you?
I would. I would like to assume my assumptions are good.
Now, I have heard somewhere rap specifically became so popular not just because of,
Eminem?
Yeah, but because it's a lot easier to produce a rap artist than a rock band.
I'm the one who told you that, and it's cheaper and easier
to develop that talent, right?
No, it's cheaper and easier for the labels to take somebody who's already established. Like, you have to get a whole group together for a rock band. It's just so much harder than getting one fucking person and having somebody else fucking mix the music in a fucking essentially lab environment, right? It's not the same.
Like, one guy comes up with the lyrics, the other guy makes a beat around those lyrics.
Yeah, instead of having to have 50 people make music. But we're done. So bye, swingers.
This is boy, he is